County. They went up to shop for their groceries and other items up in Lake County. They did that to save $5, $10, $20. So tax rates absolutely do change behavior. Illinois needs to be a welcoming state to every individual, every business at every income level. And
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight on this Thursday, May 30th. After months of speculation, Chicago's longest-serving alderman, Ed Burke, is indicted by federal authorities on multiple corruption charges.
We're not going to always be aligned on every issue, but there's, as my mother would say, there's a time and a place for everything.
We talk with aldermen about the new power dynamics at City Hall as Mayor Lori Lightfoot takes control, and of course, they'll weigh in on the Burke indictment as well.
This is what democracy is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Time is running out for state lawmakers as the marijuana bill and graduated tax rates are debated. Amanda Vinicky is live from Springfield with the latest.
No one should drown, but we're failing kids.
Are Chicagoans getting the information they need to stay safe at the beach and in the lake? A new task force recommends what to change on Chicago's beaches. And a spooky Frankenstein on stage. Theater critic Hetty Weiss recommends 5 new shows.
Over 500,000 bricks and over 4,000 hours of build time.
Lego bricks, that is, inside the new exhibition at the Morton Arboretum. All that and more next on Chicago Tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brandis Friedman. First tonight, seismic activity in the world of Chicago politics and government. Paris Schutz begins our coverage with a former federal prosecutor to help us digest today's bombshell news. Paris.
Bombshell indeed, Brandis. The Chicago political world has been on edge for months, awaiting an expected federal indictment of longtime alderman Ed Burke. Well, the wait is over. The indictment was handed down this afternoon by the U.S. Attorney's Office without the fanfare of a press conference or a court appearance. It charges Burke on 14 federal corruption counts with alleged extortion and bribery schemes related to the Old Main Post Office, a Chicago museum, and a Burger King in his ward that was previously mentioned in a criminal complaint against the alderman. Burke's longtime associate, Peter Andrews, also faces multiple charges. Joining us to offer some insight on the Burke indictment is former federal prosecutor Patrick Collins, who spent 12 years as an assistant U.S. attorney in Chicago and was the lead prosecutor in the case against former Governor George Ryan. And in the spirit of full disclosure, Mr. Collins is representing Company A, one of the potential witnesses listed in this case. Mr. Collins, thank you for being here.
Sure.
First, let's read down the specific charges for everybody. So there's 1 count of racketeering, 2 counts of federal program bribery, 2 counts of attempted extortion, 1 count of conspiracy to commit extortion, 8 counts of using interstate commerce to facilitate an unlawful activity. So these are just the charges against Alderman Burke, and these relate to alleged schemes around redevelopment of the Old Main Post Office, the Burger King on Pulaski, which was trying to get a driveway permit, a Binny's at 4901 North Irving Park, and then an unnamed Museum 1. Pat Collins, how serious are these charges?
Well, obviously very serious. I mean, the government used all its tools in the toolbox. The racketeering charge, which is the central charge that really creates an umbrella, basically saying that Mr. Burke operated his aldermanic office by using his law firm, Clafter & Burke, to profit, using the governmental actions that he could take and injecting himself into these 3 situations And so it's the most serious charge the government can bring, and it's typically the corruption case that they like to bring, where they can tell a story with a number of counts.
And racketeering is typically a charge you hear in organized crime cases. Why was it applied to a political corruption case?
I think more and more that's how these cases get charged. The Ryan case, Blagojevich case. It's a way of framing the actions of a public official, where you have them conducting activities over a period of time. Disparate actions. In other words, what's the relationship between the post office, the Burger King, and the Binnies? There is really no correlation other than the way Mr. Burke allegedly used his influence.
Are you surprised that the indictment came down this way? It was a superseding indictment, and it was basically listed in the case related to the developer of that Binnies, Charles Quay.
No, I mean, look, since November with the raid and then the series of actions thereafter, we've seen pretty much pieces of this. The old post office piece was discussed in the Sun-Times report. The Quay indictment already came down, the Burger King case. So this was really a compilation of things that we had read about, at least in part, before.
And let's break down these specific alleged schemes. So break down the Old Main post office scheme for us.
I mean, at a high level, I think the allegations are that Mr. Burke attempted to have Company A hire him in his private capacity, Clafter and Burke, his law firm, in return for Mr. Burke taking certain actions to benefit the development over a period of time. I think importantly, Mr. Solis
This is the former 25th Ward Alderman Danny Solis.
And unbeknownst to the parties involved, Mr. Solis was cooperating with the government at the time. And one unanswered question, Paris, in today's developments is, what about Mr. Solis?
Right, he's not charged in this.
No, presumably, again, we don't know. No statement's been made publicly about his fate, but presumably he will be charged at some point. He also very likely will be the star witness for the government in Mr. Burke's case, or at least a star witness.
Well, could he escape all charges if he cooperates like that?
Again, based on what we've seen in the public domain, very unlikely, but we don't know, and the government hasn't spoken to about Mr. Solis's fate.
Well, let's get to some of the quotes from the indictment related to this alleged scheme. So they had tapped a lot of Ed Burke's phone calls, and so during one call, Burke threatened to, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. On January 25th, Burke advised Alderman A, that's Danny Solis, that Burke would not take any action benefiting individual A1 and Company A in connection with the post office project unless individual A1 retained Burke's firm, Clafter and Burke, and told Alderman A, Danny Solis, quote, the cash register has not rung yet. And then it goes on to say that Burke asked Solis, quote, so did we land the big tuna? Later he gets frustrated that the Old Main Post Office Company is not hired, Clafter and Burke, and he says they can go F themselves. Are these quotes kind of compiled in this indictment to really sort of make the case for a potential jury? To kind of underscore the case?
Absolutely. And again, the best evidence that you can have at any trial is if you can press the tape recorder and have the defendant's voice speak to it. And I do think, and again, I do have some personal knowledge of this sequence, it was really a 2-year period of time where there was incessant push by Mr. Solis and Mr. Burke to get 601W to hire Clafter and Burke. And I think the
601W is Company A.
Is Company A. And the undercurrent of all this is Mr. Burke won't lift a finger unless and until he's hired.
And it also says at the end that Danny Solis was going to get paid by Burke. There were going to be kickbacks for him, for his role in this.
According to the indictment, in conversations recorded between Mr. Solis and Mr. Burke, there was idea that they had a partnership of sorts. And again, Mr. Solis was cooperating with the government at the time, so this is an attempt. It wouldn't be an actual partnership. Unclear what arrangement they had before Mr. Solis began cooperating.
Okay, so there's another alleged scheme that we didn't know much about before this, and this involves trying to hold up a fee or an admission increase that a certain museum wanted. Can you outline this scheme for us?
Well, again, as the indictment alleges, effectively Mr. Burke injected himself into the situation because he wanted someone hired, and until the museum would hire that person, he was going to put his thumb on the scale against a potential increase in fare. in fees.
He wanted them to hire the son, I believe, of an acquaintance.
It was someone that Mr. Burke knew, and he wanted that person hired. Mr. Burke had the ability in his public position to put his thumb on the scale through the Finance Committee, and the allegations are Mr. Burke effectively said, unless you hire this person, I'm going to hurt you governmentally. And I think that, Paris, at the end of the day, when you cut through it all, that is the core allegation that Mr. Burke, wearing his aldermanic hat, basically said, I can either help or hurt you. In this private business hat, if you hire my law firm, I will help you. If you don't hire my law firm, I will hurt you. And that's at least the government's allegations. Mr. Burke has very able counsel. There's only 4, sequences. They were up on his phone for over 2 years. Some of these will be picked apart by counsel, but those are the allegations in the main.
Do you believe there could be more, or do you believe these are the strongest sequences that they could have gone with?
Well, what we do, short answer is I don't know. What we do know is the government's been at this for several years with Mr. Burke, with Mr. Solis. They made a public action in November. They've taken this action now in late May. I believe with the government, you never stop looking. The one question is, does any of these new allegations bring people out of the woodwork? But I do believe this is the core of what they are prepared to go to trial with.
Can you outline the charges against Mr. Andrews, Peter Andrews, who's a longtime political associate of Alderman Burke? What is he charged with, and what was his role in all of this?
Well, I mean, effectively, his role was assisting or facilitating and executing on this with Mr. Burke, basically being sort of the order taker, order executor. And I do think, really frankly, there's enormous pressure on that gentleman, whether he would flip and ultimately, in return for some agreement with the government, testify against Mr. Burke. Again, from the allegations, a long time associated with Mr. Burke, and again, from my experience, on both sides of the aisle, enormous pressure on a gentleman like that, who, again, allegedly was the executor of some of Mr. Burke's schemes with his governmental hat, but also someone with enormous loyalty to Mr. Burke. So he's really faced with a very, very difficult dilemma.
And according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Mr. Burke, Mr. Andrews, and then Mr. Quay, who's the developer of that Binny's on the northwest side, they're going to be arraigned, or actually Burke and Andrews are going to be facing their arraignment on June 4th at 10 a.m. in federal court. Do you anticipate that there's any deal for Alderman Burke to cut, anything else that the U.S. Attorney's Office wants from him?
Well, again, I think there's always, at the U.S. Attorney's Office, they always want a person, particularly someone like Mr. Burke, who's been in government for so long, to come in and say what he knows about any sort of corruption. But I think any betting man would say Mr. Burke is going to likely fight these charges, and the government's got to be prepared to go to trial.
All right, Pat Collins, well, we will be watching this and hopefully talking to you again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paris.
And up next, 4 Chicago aldermen weigh in on the Burke indictment, as well as Mayor Lightfoot's dramatic first city council meeting.
Don't miss one of our stories. Get them all delivered to your desktop or mobile device with a subscription to the WTTW News Daily Briefing. Go to WTTW.com/dailybriefing and sign up.
And now we're joined by a panel of city council members who were originally invited to talk about yesterday's slapdown heard round Chicago. We're referring to that feisty exchange between new Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Alderman Ed Burke. But with news of Burke's indictment on 14 bribery, extortion, and racketeering charges, aldermen have another urgent question. Should their longtime colleague resign? Joining us to answer all of these things and weigh in on Mayor Lightfoot's first days in office are Scott Waguespack, alderman of Chicago's 32nd Ward and now chair of City Council's Finance Committee, freshman alderman Andre Vasquez of the 40th Ward, 2nd Ward alderman Brian Hopkins, and Alderman Raymond Lopez of the 15th Ward. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here. And before I ask you any questions, we did just get a statement from Mayor Lori Lightfoot on this Burke indictment. She is calling on Alderman Burke to resign immediately. I want to go down the line. Alderman Waguespack, do you believe, given these charges, Alderman Burke should resign?
It's appropriate that he should resign.
Alderman Vasquez?
Agreed.
Alderman Hopkins?
I'll leave that up to him and his lawyers.
So no position on this?
No.
Alderman Lopez?
You know, I think it was right for him to be removed as finance chairman. His voters obviously have a connection, kept him, but ultimately he's going to have to make that decision himself.
Can I just also go down the line and just get your initial reactions to what you've seen in this indictment, Alderman Waguespack?
I think it's pretty stunning. It's obviously, as you said, more sequences than the people expected, but it's pretty appalling to see how an elected official is wrongfully using their position to garner these approvals throughout the city.
Alderman Vasquez?
I think that it's not terribly shocking to a lot of people in the city because we've often talked about corruption. It's what people like myself who campaigned came into the council to change. And I think I think it is appropriate to potentially remove himself because we need to move forward and find solutions for our city, not constantly be distracted by things like this.
Alderman Hopkins.
Well, as your previous guest said, there wasn't a lot new that came out in this indictment. It was a formal charge that we were expecting, but it's still very disturbing, and it saddens me that this is happening.
Alderman Lopez.
If these allegations are true, I think justice will eventually prevail, but I think that this highlights the need for more serious reforms in the city council, things like banning outside employment, which I've spoken out about at length, that are at the core of all the corruption that we're talking about. And as we proceed forward, maybe that's something that my colleagues will join me in making a stronger push for in this session.
As Pat Collins said, the underlying theme here is Alderman Burke is alleged to use his position in the city to enrich himself, essentially, by trying to shake down these companies doing business with the city to hire his private law firm. Does anyone here really think that this was not known amongst you and your colleagues for a long time? I mean, people knew that this is how Ed Burke operated, no?
I think this is the perception of how all aldermen operate, that we're all somehow, as the mayor said, trying to line our pockets on her inauguration speech. And what we have to do is focus on doing what we can to remove those layers of perception, because in politics, perception is reality. And if people perceive that there's that possibility, they're going to automatically believe it. So we have to be focused on actually doing things that are structural for all of our members to ensure that there are no outside influences trying to attract business from us, as well as focus on the donation part and maybe say, back to zero for donations from individuals trying to do business with the city 6 months in advance or 6 months after.
What about Alderman Danny Solis, who is listed in here? Has anyone heard from him?
Haven't heard a word.
Yeah, no clue where he is.
No one knows where he is.
No.
Alderman Waguespack, so you believe Burke should resign. Do you believe that City Council is ready to pass reforms that will stop these kinds of alleged abuses in the future?
Well, I think we can try to pass as many as we can. I know Mayor Lightfoot is coming forward with the ethics package. Several Alderman Lopez has mentioned one of them, where we're trying to cut out a lot of the things that have been wrong about the City Council for decades. I think this behavior has been going on for years. When you look back at neighborhoods for sale, when I first started back in 06, 07, that was a problem back then about the abuse of zoning. And when we look forward to now, what has changed in the City Council? Not a whole lot. I mean, there's been a little bit of touch here and there around ethics issues, but we really need a full package that I think Mayor Lightfoot's going to come forward with, working with aldermen to say, we need fundamental change. We need to start cutting off the heads of each one of these issues that we saw today with this indictment of Ed Burke.
Also mentioned in this indictment is a Museum 1 that he apparently had tried to extort. Does anyone know what museum that could be?
The Field Museum.
It's the Field Museum.
Yeah.
So he wanted to get someone hired, an acquaintance hired. Do we know who he wanted to get hired there?
Yeah, I think in the Sun-Times it was reported my former alderman, Terry Gabinski.
So his former alderman, Terry Gabinski's son or daughter?
Related, yeah.
It was a relative of former alderman Terry Gabinski. So we know it's the Field Museum. Alderman Hopkins, what did you make of the exchange yesterday between Mayor Lightfoot and Alderman Burke when Alderman Burke tried to make a case about the new rules that she was submitting?
Yeah, I was surprised he did that. I didn't see that coming. He didn't discuss it with me or any alderman to my knowledge. But what I think, and I can only speculate here, he was trying to do, knowing that Alderman Burke is a master parliamentarian, I think he had some type of strategy in mind that would require 2 or 3 steps for him to take, and Mayor Lightfoot shut him down at the first step. So we don't know where he was going or what he was doing.
you have an
But I
objection?
don't believe his intention was solely to bring up the, gender issue in the language.
And that was his objection, was the language and the rules she put forth was not gender neutral. Alderman Vasquez, do you believe he wanted to put off the mayor's agenda on reorganizing the council?
Yeah, I mean, I think it appeared to me, I've never seen the alderman be as woke as he was at that moment, that it was an attempt to potentially stall any movement forward. So where we're trying to figure out who's going to be on the committees and make decisions that could help us actually begin to do the work that we've been elected to do something to stall it potentially.
Alderman Lopez, the way Mayor Lightfoot conducted herself played very well in the press. It played very well among reporters, but I did talk to some of your colleagues that felt that her tone was too harsh with Alderman Burke and too heavy-handed. What do you think?
Well, as someone who was also on the receiving end of that tone, I can definitely say it's a very unnerving work environment when you're trying to have an open discussion on issues. And even if you disagree with Burke or you hate Burke or you don't believe in what I'm trying to suggest, there still has to be a level of decorum and workability amongst the group to be able to have a discussion on any issue. Everyone at this table was elected to represent the views of their wards and to make their concerns known, particularly at council. And to have a mayor who for the first time said, when I want to hear from you, I'll let you know, or who intentionally chose not to look up so as to avoid any kind of debate, especially when that mayor ran on a platform of progress, openness, transparency, and inclusion, set the tone in a wildly different direction than I think any of us were prepared to see.
She also had some choice words for you. She said that you carry Burke's water. Is that true?
Well, first off, I don't have Burke's Cliff Notes on any conversation I'm a part of. I am my own man, and apparently she doesn't know her own history because Ed Burke didn't want me as alderman. He ran someone against me in 2015. What we have done is created a relationship, since we're neighbors, where we're able to collaborate on key issues of neighborhood safety and development. And for her to try and bring up the Burke boogeyman and apply that label to me simply because I disagreed with her is going to be a bad governing stance for her for the next 4 years. Because if these allegations are proven true and if Burke is out of the equation, I'm not going to sit quietly and let her try to label me as Burke Jr. simply because I disagree with her. That's not how this is going to go for the next 4 years between she and I.
Alderman Waguespack, you've been an early supporter of Mayor Lightfoot. Is there something to that? I mean, is there something wrong with the tone that she's using, calling out individual aldermen, saying they carry Burke's water?
Well, I think going back to the front of the situation when Ed Burke came up, I think what he was trying to do there was amend the rules as they were presented to us, and that would have led to either a change in the format. I know what he was trying to do. I think there were some people obviously upset that I was named for potential finance chair. And there's a way for him as a really good parliamentarian to do that, and she wouldn't let him get to that next step. Now, if you go back a couple years, he really challenged her, I think, excessively during a budget session that kind of foretold what was going to happen in this particular meeting, and that was to really get into her face, really challenge her in a way that I had never seen before in a budget hearing late at night. And so it was almost prescient what was coming. But I think that she's going to step back and look, and maybe she was prescient as well, knowing something was coming up with Ed Burke. I think she's going to have to work with Alderman Lopez in the future and sitting down together and maybe working on that to figure out.
So would you advise her to reach out to Alderman Lopez?
I think she's going to reach out to everybody. She has to. She's a new mayor. There's going to be projects that come up. There's going to be new issues that come up that each one of us will have to speak to her directly about.
I don't necessarily share my colleague's sentiment on that, because I think one of the things in her press conference was that she basically said I lied when we hadn't had any conversations with each other, or I haven't reached out to her. And I still have the text message I sent her the night after the election congratulating her, and where she even said, I look forward to working with you. And then it's empty for 6 weeks after that. And as we've seen with the resolution vote and the ordinance and the committees that were all introduced this past city council, nobody reached out to discuss this. Even my colleagues.
I think in her defense, I've been here 12 years,
but even you,
and never once did anybody say, hey, Scott, I would like your vote for me as a chair on any committee. And we've had 5 shuffles.
Well, let me get some of the other aldermen here. Alderman Vasquez, they're referring to the 18 new committee chairmanships. I mean, isn't that kind of operating in the old school political way, deciding I want these aldermen to be committee chairs?
I think that's a valid point to raise, but I also think about trying to get things done. Anyone who's tried to get any consensus with a group, it would take forever. So I think coming in and with a mandate, trying to make sure we're moving forward, to set something that the rest of the council could vote on made sense. And as we saw by the votes, it was 40.
There were people working on it.
So this was a collaborative effort with aldermen.
And I think you can see it
wasn't top down.
I mean, you can tell in the vote count, right? It was north of 40, so it wasn't something that was as contentious.
Well, it was not a roll call; it was a voice vote.
So we can't say we can't.
But the
assume
ayes
that it was
were
north.
pretty overwhelming. Alderman Hopkins, what about your working relationship with the mayor?
I was actually a no vote on the city council reorganization until the night before. In fact, late the night before. I received a phone call from Alderman Wagasback, and he and I had a very frank and candid discussion. And at the end of it, I agreed to support the slate. I voted
what
yes.
turned it for you?
Well, I'll keep the details of the conversation between Scott and I private, but I bring it up to simply point out that I never got a phone call from Mayor Lightfoot either. In fact, to this moment, as we're having this show, I still haven't talked to her. I'm supposed to talk to her the next day, but up until this point, she hasn't reached out to me. She hasn't returned several of my calls, and it just really highlights the fact that she and her administration need to do a much better job of treating the legislative branch of government as a co-equal branch. She's going to have some difficult times ahead if she doesn't turn that around and start working on a one-on-one basis with all the aldermen.
Alderman Wagasbeck, you are now in charge of the all-powerful, or the formerly powerful Finance Committee. It's a little smaller of a committee now.
Yeah.
You say you're going to open up the books. What are reporters and the public going to find out about the way this was run under Ed Burke's guidance?
Well, if it's anything like the audit that came out for the workers' comp program, you're going to see we're going to have to see a lot of changes. I think that came out just a couple of Fridays ago. It shows just an awful effort around stopping the waste, fraud, and corruption that could take place in a workers' comp program. When we see the final audit for that, the overall audit, and have hearings on it, it's probably going to be parallel to some of the things that we'll see coming out of that. I think the indictments show how he was abusing that office. We want to completely change that. We want to have the books open. We're going to bring in the IG to help do an audit, and we're going to be open with aldermen to really trying to transform the way the committee works, provide aldermen with more information as far ahead of time as we can.
Well, in the past, the Finance Committee kind of rubber stamped all the city's spending proposals, borrowing proposals, taxing proposals. Is it going to actually act as a check and balance?
I think it will, and I really hope to work with my fellow aldermen to make sure that, again, they're getting the information. They have time to read it. They have time to respond. And we're talking about the financial teams that are out there as well, working with the CFO, working with the budget team to really push these ideas out there, push proposals out there. When we get information from the finance industry, we want information coming in as well. We don't want data dumps. We want really robust transparency. So there's a lot that we have to change there.
Alderman Lopez, how difficult are some upcoming votes going to be on things like budget and revenue?
Well, I think they're going to be quite difficult because we have not only a new crop of aldermen, but you have a whole new infusion of philosophies. We have a Democratic Socialist joining our panel here today, as well as 5 of his colleagues who are now with us, and they are going to differ with us wildly on some issues and agree with us totally on others, and it's going to be a revolving coalition that the mayor's going to have to enact with her leadership to try and pass things. And the only way that you can do that is if you're able to reach out and discuss and hopefully do what Chairman Wagasback is saying and get information out early, because we didn't see that Wednesday, and I hope that's something that's not
I just
repeated.
wanted to make a comment, because I know this has been going on a lot since we got elected about the Democratic Socialists and this being this block. It's just open conversation. We should not be agreeing. We should be figuring out what solutions are rather than the rubber stamping. So it's not that I'm a Democratic Socialist and we're going to be hardliners. It's that we need to move our agenda forward. We need to help embolden the Progressive Caucus. We need to find solutions for people and get rid of the corruption that's been here. We need to make sure that we're changing the amount of money some of these committees have. When you have newly elected aldermen, you don't have the budget to hire more than 3 people. Right. Meanwhile, you got Burke, what, about 61, I believe was the count. So I think there's a lot of things to change.
We got documents showing he had north of 80 employees last year on the Finance Committee.
So I said the problem wouldn't be a Democratic Socialist.
7 or 8 total employees.
Yeah. But I said the problem wouldn't be the Democratic Socialists coming in. It's the people we need to get out.
And my hope for them is that they get the opportunity to be recognized at their own meetings when they have their disagreements with the mayor in a way that I was not.
All right, gentlemen.
I recognize you.
We have so much more to talk about, but we are out of time. But we hope you do all come back for more discussions in this very interesting time in city government. Alderman Scott Wagasback, Alderman Andre Vasquez, Alderman Brian Hopkins, Alderman Ray Lopez, thank you all for being here. And there is more Chicago Tonight ahead, so please stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part through the generous support of the Julius Frankel Foundation.
Still to come on Chicago Tonight, how water safety advocates are trying to prevent drownings on Chicago's lakefront. Tudor wives tell their herstory in concert, and Frankenstein's monster comes alive on stage. Eddie Weiss recommends the latest in theater. And how more than 500,000 Lego bricks came together to help Morton Arboretum visitors connect with nature. But first, it's getting down to the wire in Springfield on the penultimate day of the legislative session. Chicago Tonight's Amanda Vinicky comes to us live from the House chambers. Amanda, what's the latest there?
Brandis, a lot is still in flux. We still haven't seen a budget introduced, and it's unclear whether there's enough support for some major pieces of legislation to pass. Governor J.B. Pritzker has been adamant from the onset that he wants a significant public works program, but still no clear deal on how to pay for that beyond a hike in the tax on gasoline. One of the major ways that billions of dollars could be raised for those infrastructure upgrades would come from an expansion of gambling. The governor earlier this morning was buoyant about prospects.
I feel confident that we're going to get a gaming bill. I know there's still some conversation that's gone on about sports betting in recent days. This is, I think, an important thing for the state to enact, but what's most important here is that we get a good bill, and the legislators are working hard. My office has been in those meetings. Both sides of the aisle have been engaged in those meetings. It's been a bipartisan effort, but I feel pretty confident we're going to get there.
I spent a lot of time this afternoon talking with legislators and lobbyists who'd be in on those negotiations, and even people that are part of those talks don't seem to have a handle, that is, on whether there will be a deal and what would be part of it. Sticking points have included a battle between daily fantasy sports and the Rivers Casino, both of which want to get in on online sports betting. Also, will there be support from lawmakers to add a handful of new casinos in Illinois, including in the Waukegan area, the south suburbs, and the city of Chicago? Mayor Lori Lightfoot's office says her office has been in constant conversations about this, but her spokesperson could not say whether Lightfoot will insist or not that a Chicago casino be city-owned.
And Amanda, you said early on that a budget still hasn't been introduced either. Is this typical?
Well, for Illinois, kind of, yes, but that doesn't make it any less frustrating for Illinois taxpayers who would like more than, say, maybe 24 hours to know what billions of their money is going to be spent on. There does, however, remain a general consensus that a budget is going to pass on time by midnight tomorrow, and that would be seen as a victory for Governor Pritzker, particularly compared with the partisan dysfunction of his predecessor, under his predecessor, Governor Bruce Rauner. I am told that the budget does not depend on that much new revenue or increases. That's in part thanks to a windfall from the federal government. There will, however, be a tax on managed care organizations, so bringing in some extra money to buttress spending plan, not, again, counting on money from legalized marijuana.
So, Amanda, then what does that mean for the chances of that marijuana bill passing?
We can't really tell. It is unclear whether or not it will. Representatives particularly Democrats, spent hours behind closed doors today discussing that. And later still this evening, as you can see, representatives are still debating legislation right now, but they are set to go to a committee to talk about legalizing marijuana for adults. Now, that is expected to have an easy time getting out of committee, and then we would see a vote in the House tomorrow. Public advocates, that is, for this are really putting on pressure.
This is what democracy is supposed to look like. Yeah. Is when you get a whole bunch of people in the room who do not agree with all their fears and all their worries and all their questions and all the things that go into doing something this big. One thing we will not be able to do in one bill is completely change or rewrite the history of what prohibition did to our communities. We can't fix that all in one bill. But we can start the fight. And we know that the fight doesn't start with the passage of the bill. It starts as soon as that thing gets signed into law, where we can all watch and we can all study and we can all track and we can all correct where there are mistakes.
Another measure that got a lot of attention when it passed the House earlier this week would be a major expansion of abortion rights. That has not yet gotten a vote, however, in the Senate. So advocates there coming to the Capitol to press for action. You had women dressed as handmaids from that popular dystopian novel and TV program, The Handmaid's Tale, visiting the Senate gallery. So we'll be watching and waiting for that too.
Amanda, so we've got the budget, gambling, infrastructure, pot, and abortion, all still in flux. Is anything settled?
There are going to be a bunch, dozens, hundreds even, of bills that, yes, will be heading to the governor's desk. Just actually minutes ago, the House passing a bill that would set new income tax rates starting in 2021. You'll recall that earlier this week, the legislature voting to put a question on the statewide ballot in 2020 that will allow voters to determine whether they want to amend the state constitution to allow for income taxes to be taxed at a graduated rate. This plan would lay out those rates in the event that voters say yes. Now, Republicans say this is anti-competitive and that the rates are lying, teasing rates.
This is a Trojan horse. We all know it. We all know this is being used to sell the voters on falsehoods next year about what this bill will really do. This is a massive tax increase. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It doesn't index for inflation. It's going to hurt families. It's going to drive people out of this state. And very specifically, it's going to kill jobs because it's going to hit small businesses.
A measure that is now dead, however, was a key priority for the new Cook County assessor, Fritz Kagi. He said it was needed so he could do a better job assessing the value of commercial properties, but businesses had fought against it, saying they didn't want to share that sensitive information, and it appears that they won. One more day now to get all the rest of this sorted out. Brandis.
One more day, Amanda. Thank you. So much happening in city and state politics today, but there is other news in Chicago tonight. Starting with singer R. Kelly, he's now facing 11 new criminal sexual abuse charges. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office filed the new charges today, some of which carry a maximum 30-year prison sentence. This comes 3 months after Kelly was hit with 10 previous charges of aggravated criminal sexual abuse. Kelly pleaded not guilty to the initial charges in February. His attorney, Steve Greenberg, did not immediately comment on the new charges. And the Chicago Police Department has released 460 pages of files related to its investigation of actor Jussie Smollett. It includes dozens of case reports and arrest files. The department says it'll release hundreds more documents next week, including police videos. Last week, a Cook County judge ordered the state's attorney's office to unseal documents in the case. Smollett, who initially claimed that he was the victim of a hate crime attack, was later charged with actually orchestrating the attack himself and filing a false police report. Prosecutors dropped all charges in March after they say Smollett had performed 16 hours of community service and forfeited his $10,000 bond. There is more information on this story on our website. And not so fast on a new tax proposal to help fund a renovation project at McCormick Place. Mayor Lightfoot is opposing a plan to expand McPier's special taxing zone to fund a teardown of the Lakeside Center and build a new building over King Drive. The 1% sales tax currently applies to restaurants in the central business area, but a bill that passed the state Senate would have broadened the region to Hyde Park on the south, Western Avenue to the west, and Irving Park Road to the north. Lightfoot says she supports investment in McCormick Place, but is concerned this proposal exempts large venue owners like sports stadiums and unduly burdens small businesses. The city has officially inked a $160 million design contract with the lead architect for O'Hare's massive expansion project. Studio ORD is a group led by renowned Chicago architect Jeannie Gang. It'll lead the redesign process on Terminal 2 after scoring the winning bid. The city will select from runner-up architects to design a satellite building for Terminal 1. The entire O'Hare project is expected to add about 25% more gate space, better connect local and international flights, and cost a total of $8.5 billion, paid for largely by airline gate taxes. As for the weather, clear tonight with a low around 54, and then beautiful and dry tomorrow. Finally, sunny with a high of 81. Now to Paris Schutz and a look at some efforts to keep Chicago's waterfront safe. Paris.
Brandis, beach season is finally here, but water safety advocates say they're worried about a lack of preventative safety measures on Chicago's lakefront. As a part of their efforts, some of those advocates have helped create a task force to address their concerns. We checked in with some of them to hear what they'd like to see change on the city's beaches. West Ridge resident Hallie Quezada never gave much thought to the dangers of water.
We're around water all the time. We usually don't drown. It's not like fire, you play with fire and you're gonna get burned.
But that changed after a fateful night in July of last year. She and her family witnessed the immediate aftermath of a teenage girl submerging in a structural current at Loyola Beach.
This is where the kids initially went in the water, and it happened so fast.
Although the teen's friends made it out of the water, 13-year-old Darianne Torres drowned that evening, about 20 minutes after lifeguards were off duty.
Being on the beach that night was so powerless and helpless, and everyone there wanted to do something. And in hindsight, when you just replay the moments over and over, and it was so preventable and so needless.
The experience led Quezada to start a petition to address issues at the beach: the lack of signage, life rings, and lifeguards. On top of that, she wondered why she didn't know about the danger of structural currents. Those are waves powered by high winds that pile up against structures in the water and can carry a swimmer out further away from the shoreline.
Why don't we know that it's dangerous to swim near structures, that these currents are deadly? It's not common sense, and we're not educating.
So, just by a show of hands, how many people know how to swim?
As co-founder of the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project, Dave Benjamin puts on presentations to educate the public about beach safety. Benjamin says there's a difference between knowing how to swim and knowing how to survive. And with that, he says there's a stigma associated with drowning, which prevents swimmers from learning how to survive.
The stigma gives them the false sense of security that drowning wouldn't happen to me, because the summation is drowning only happens to stupid people. And when we started working with family and friends of drowning victims, we found that, a lot of these drowning victims, were brilliant. They were straight A students. They knew how to swim. They just didn't know what to do in a rip current. They didn't know what to do if they're struggling in water over their head.
Benjamin's nonprofit tracks reported drownings in the Great Lakes. Since 2010, there have been more than 750. And he says on average, almost half of all Great Lakes drownings happen in Lake Michigan, specifically in the south end of the lake.
Just kind of informally looking at it, population density, access to water, tourist destination, a lot more people going to the beach, the law of averages is the probability of something happening.
Both Benjamin and Quezada say Chicago's beaches fare pretty well, but they're not perfect. The two are members of the City of Chicago's Lakefront Safety Task Force, which evaluated the city's beaches and put out recommendations for change in a report to City Council. Some of those policy recommendations include expanding lifeguard capacity by restoring lifeguard hours and increasing the budget for lifeguard staffing. Also, installing a numbering location system at all beaches, and recommending that the Chicago Park District conduct annual water safety demonstrations and outreach events. Members with the Chicago Park District are part of the task force and also see what needs changing on Chicago's beaches, but they say financial challenges can keep their hands tied.
A lot of the challenges that have been presented in the task force recommendations is really just the money to implement. We continue to deal with financial challenges in the Park District, and so now that the recommendations are out there, we're taking a look at those, and we're submitting those requests for additional financing to try and make those things happen.
The task force report was submitted to City Council last month. Next steps include a hearing. While she waits for those recommendations to be considered, Quezada is focused on teaching her own kids about water safety.
Most importantly, they're in swim lessons. We also are constantly reinforcing, whenever we see water, we're reinforcing the message that you don't go in, we love water, but never alone.
And she's dedicated her free time to spreading the word about the dangers of swimming in the lake
and what she experienced the night Darianne Torres died.
We are essentially saying that it was acceptable if we don't make changes as a response. And that's what really makes me more emotional than anything else, because I'm not comfortable waiting to see who's next.
In 2014, the World Health Organization declared drowning a hidden global epidemic. And according to the American Journal of Public Health, drowning is the leading cause of death after birth defects for children under the ages of 1 or between the ages of 1 through 4. You can find more about this on our website, and you can get involved with water safety efforts in Chicago. And now back to Brandis and a look at what's happening in Chicago theater.
From the wives of Henry VIII to Frankenstein's creature, there is so much to see on local stages right now. Joining us for some recommendations is theater critic Hetty Weiss. Welcome back, Hetty.
Hi, Brandis.
So, Six. Now, this one comes to Chicago from the UK, and it's already got some Broadway buzz. What is Six?
Right, I would give it Broadway buzz. It's an all U.S. or Canadian cast, and I'm pretty sure it might go to Broadway. It's about the 6 wives of Henry VIII. And they have their Me Too moment, and they're getting a little revenge, and they are rocking it.
There's 6 of them, the exes of...
There's 6 of them. They dance up a storm, they sing up a storm, and each of them has a fascinating and quite different story to tell. Some are divorced, some are beheaded, and some survive. And that's kind of the motto of the show.
So it's contemporary and a bit anachronistic. Is it historically accurate? I mean, except for the part where
to a
some of them
large
are
degree. I did look
again.
up some of the ones that some of the wives that I wasn't familiar with, and yes, it is mostly accurate, and they all have something to say about Henry. But actually, the moral of the story is that Henry is famous because of them.
I'm sure many ex-wives would say the same. Next, we have The Adventures of Augie March. That one's based on Saul Bellows' 1953 novel. How does such a big book stack up on the stage?
It's an almost 600-page book that's very dense and full of fabulous language. And the amazing thing is that David Auburn, who adapted it, and Charlie Newell, who directed it, found a way to really make it move and to make it moving and powerful, and to use dance movement in some ways and a puppet. And we see a fabulous romantic scene here between Augie, who has kind of been pursued and also is happy to be pursued by a woman named Thea, who's quite a character.
And now that I am in love with you, I know what I want.
What?
You. Nothing else.
Good. You have me now.
Okay, what about your husband?
I'm divorcing him. What do you think I'm doing?
These 2 actors, Patrick Mulvey and Sean Cross, are fantastic, but it's a cast of 13 and there isn't a weak link in the cast. And it's a coming-of-age story in the Depression era in Chicago. A little quasi-autobiographical of Bellow, but it's about a man who is a young man who is in a family with troubled mother, no father, 2 siblings who are very different from him, and it's just such a great piece of storytelling, and it moves all over, and he's involved in some scams, and then he falls in and out of love, and it's just a great piece of storytelling, and it is 3 hours with 2 intermissions, but it moves like the wind, and it's really, I think, a triumph for court, and I hope it has a future.
Then there's Frankenstein. There's a lot of Frankenstein on stage lately. What's up with that?
Well, last year was the 200th anniversary of the publication of Mary Shelley's, I think, chillingly prophetic novel about a man who thinks he can create life, who can play God. And you can see the physicality of the production and the earthiness of the production and the kind of gruesomeness of the production. And it's really about a man who, is brilliant scientifically and then doesn't realize what the consequences can be. And that's sort of a very topical issue. And of course, Looking Glass always finds way to do visual tricks and lighting and fabulous sets and an absolutely beautiful pas de deux. It's a wonderful production.
And we can see here, some of the special effects and the makeup. And is it a bit gory?
Well, gory. I mean, it's Frankenstein, and we know what happens. That's not the surprise. I think the surprise is the storytelling, and also I think it really reminds you of what a genius piece of work it was by Mary Shelley.
And so, from Frankenstein to James Joyce.
We're hitting all the big,
Yeah, we're going really heavy today. How does the Irish novelist fit into Bloomsday?
Okay, so Bloomsday is a celebration that is every year in honor of Leopold Bloom, the lead character in James Joyce's groundbreaking novel, Ulysses. And this is set in Dublin, and it's a young tour guide who is, leading tourists who really couldn't care less, but they're going on the tour that follows the character in Ulysses and all of the places he stops in Dublin. And she attracts the attention of a young man, but at the same time, an older man who thinks he sees himself in this couple, but years earlier. So there's all of this play with time. And it's a fascinating scene here in which we see the young tourist guide and the guy who she's attracted to.
Would you please just look at her?
I wondered if you might tag along with us. No charge. If you just stand in back while I give my tour, I'd be so pleased.
And right when I thought you was interested in me,
Because you see, the thing is,
the truth came out.
I've got a group of 12.
Again, another really brilliant cast, but this young woman, Bryce Gangel, has caught my attention many times. I think she's really a big talent. And the way they play with time and memory and regret and love, it's a beautifully written play by Stephen Dietz, and it's beautifully directed, and I think it's a great show for Remy Bumpo.
And what is Bloomsday?
Well, Bloomsday is the celebration that they have every year. Sometimes they do a 24-hour reading of James Joyce's Ulysses. It's the day in the novel when Leopold Bloom makes a whole odyssey through Dublin. And so the tour guide actually takes tourists to all of the places that are mentioned in the novel.
So lastly, we have a musical about mental illness. Tell us about Next to Normal.
This is not the only piece this season about mental illness. The Normal Heart. I have to say, I did not much care for this musical when it was on Broadway and on tour, but David Cromer, who is the the Tony Award-winning director of The Band's Visit, which is coming here soon, it did such a humanizing, beautiful job of bringing it to life. And we see a scene here in which the daughter of the mentally ill woman is with a potential boyfriend, but it's a little tense and it's also very charming.
I wish I could fly and magically appear and disappear. I wish I could fly.
And it's sort of very sad, but also very moving about what that influence is of having, a parent who has manic depression and how it affects her child, and then how spreading out how it affects her husband and how it affects the daughters. And then there's a secret that I won't give away, but that's part of what animates the show.
And you say you've seen there are several plays about mental illness or that tackle mental illness.
Yes, there's a wonderful one-man show called The Mushroom Cure, which is at the Greenhouse right now, and we don't have a clip of it tonight. But it's about an obsessive-compulsive disorder, and it's so funny and it's so brilliantly done. So that's another one.
Hattie Weiss, always good to see you.
Thanks, Brandis.
And we're back right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Allstate. Allstate is investing in Chicago's youth. We believe good starts young. That's why we're helping our youth develop the skills they need to achieve success in life. Allstate is proud to empower the next generation of leaders.
The Morton Arboretum in Lisle works to help visitors make connections with the natural world. A new exhibition that just opened this past weekend aims to do just that, one brick at a time. Jay Shevsky has that story.
Those are Lego bricks, to be exact. More than 500,000 of them across 15 different displays that make up Nature Connects. Sarah Sargent, manager of interpretation and exhibits, says it connects directly to the Arboretum.
It has, with the exception of the peacock, some creatures that people might see as they're walking around our grounds.
The peacock and the 14 other Lego sculptures are the creation of New York-based artist Sean Kenny, who describes himself as a professional kid. The displays at the Arboretum range in size from a monarch butterfly on a milkweed plant that's close to 7 feet tall, down to a woodpecker just under 2 feet tall that sometimes has real-life counterparts nearby.
We asked for a pileated woodpecker because we have 1,700 acres here, and pileated woodpeckers are the largest species of woodpecker in North America. They like a range, and so you will occasionally see them in the east woods. We have a bee for our pollinator gardens. And we have an acorn that's sprouting an oak sapling.
And that sapling isn't just a sight to behold, it's also a nod to Morton's mission.
Oaks are especially important to the Illinois ecosystem, but of course we've lost a lot of our native ecosystems over the centuries, and so now we're interested in restoration and conservation. So not only are our scientists looking at how to conserve and restore oak forests here, but they're working with scientists around the globe to restore native species of oaks in other habitats in Mexico and China.
The 15 different displays took artist Kenny and his team some 4,500 hours to build, the equivalent of more than 6 months of work.
It's really something that you can't describe until you've seen a peacock or a monarch butterfly made out of Legos that's taller than you are. You really haven't lived.
While putting the displays together was quite an undertaking, visitors to the Arboretum can see them all by foot in about an hour. For Chicago Tonight, I'm Jay Shefsky.
And Nature Connects is scheduled to be on display at the Morton Arboretum until September 15th.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Join us tomorrow night live at 7 for the Week in Review and the latest on the Ed Burke indictments. And now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz.
And I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Closed captioning for this program is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, pleased to give back to the community through numerous charitable initiatives.